opportunity at the end of the Zman to sort of put things together at the end of Baruch Hashem, the productive Zman, and looking forward to Ben Zman, hopefully used properly, and get to Elul in the beginning of the next year with the proper attitudes and desire to be successful in Ruchnis and Ashnis. The next few days, Shabbos is coming, and if you look at Shabbos from a perspective of Yashmis, physicality, it's just like any other day of the week. The sun rises, the sun sets, sometimes it's windy, it's not windy, rains maybe perhaps. It's cold. Physically, Shabbos is like any other day of the week. If you look in terms of Ruchnius, completely different. Person wants to strike a match during the weekday, nothing wrong with that. On Shabbos, there's a tremendous spiritual and physical. There's a Beis Din and Zayas on Australia. Beis Din can give a Misa, so it's completely different. Likewise, Klal Yisrael. You look at a Jew, looks like any other human being. Maybe the way he dresses, perhaps, a beard, but 99% of what the Jew looks like is like any other human being in the hot day. But there's a complete difference between the two. The Ruchnis. Look at the Ruchnis of a Jew and the Ruchnis of a non-Jew, completely different. When we're thinking about Tisha B'Av and Shabbos, so Shabbos takes precedence over Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, the fast, Be'ez Shem Mashiach still come. You won't have to have a fast from Yom Shom, but it's nitchet. It's pushed off because Shabbos is the Shabbos, and we're not going to have a Veilus. We're not going to mourn on Shabbos. And let's put the day of mourning on to the next day of Sunday. However, there's a halacha, Mr. Brewer brings down the halacha, those who are going to be taking showers, whatever you have to do for Shabbos, L'Tchila, Mr. Brewer in the halacha says, the person should, L'Tchila, take his Shabbos shower, whatever he's going to do, before Chatzos Yom. L'Tchila before Chatzos Yom. B'diavad, it's not possible for some other reason, after Chatzos it's also permissible. But L'Tchila should be before. Why? Because even though Shabbos takes precedence over Tisha B'Av, but Erev Tisha B'Av is still Erev Tisha B'Av. Right? Tomorrow is going to be Erev Tisha B'Av. Right? And it has certain halachas. And as we know, if it would be a regular year, and if the Beis Hamikdash was still not built, it has certain halachas that Erev Shabbos, Erev Tisha B'Av rather, has certain halachas which we have to enforce and abide by. And one of those things you have to mamayet things as you're getting closer to the day of Tisha B'Av, you curtail your physical enjoyments, your physical activities, and become more involved with the morning duty that you're supposed to have over the Beis Hamikdash. So tomorrow, which is Erev Tisha B'Av, you should try and do whatever you have to do in terms of your preparations for Shabbos early enough before it's Chatzos Yom of Erev Tisha B'Av.
More than a shower?
Excuse me?
More than a shower?
The Mishnah only mentions about Chafitas al Rosh. That's what the Mishnah was talking about doing it with Hamim. He's going to wash his hair with warm water with shampoo and that type of thing. So whether it applies to everything else, I can't put more words into the Mishnah than it's said. And most of the poskim don't speak about it too much. So Pakamai and Rosh or whatever, I guess it's also if a person is still the point I'm trying to make is even though we're getting close to the Shabbos, right, we're also getting close to what Tisha B'Av really is, right? Even though it's going to be pushed off, because Shabbos is going to say, stop, not Tisha B'Av now, right? Shkia comes, it's now Shabbos, right? But until that point, you're getting close to Tisha B'Av, right? So again, we have to do whatever we have to do for Shabbos. Shabbos takes precedence, but in terms of what it is, and really, in fact, in terms of the date, it's really Erev Tisha B'Av as well. Right? So that takes more precedence, perhaps, in some aspects, at least we see by taking the warm shower, whatever it might be. The warm shower, that takes precedence over the preparations of Shabbos. I mean, don't go too far into Erev Tisha B'Av, try and do things as much as early as possible, if you can. Again, if that's going to interrupt the schedule for Shabbos and things like this, you have to be careful to weigh things with a very careful balance, not to upset things. There's B'diavad, it's okay if you do it afterwards as well. It's not us or neither case, it's just the Katila. But then Motzi Shabbos, after Shabbos is over, comes Tisha B'Av. And I have a conviction to make to Rabbi. I had the whole idea of Tisha B'Av completely wrong. Right? I'm not gonna fault my rebbeim for what they taught me, what I learned from them. Hopefully I learned properly from them. Hopefully taught me properly, but I seem to have gotten the wrong message of what Tisha B'Av is all about. I was learning through some of the subbing of the Alter Mikel, or Simple Zilzis itself, and he speaks about Tisha B'Av. He says, Kol Abel Shal Tisha B'Av, the whole grief that we're supposed to feel about Tisha B'Av is on our sins. About our sins. That's what we're supposed to be grieving about. People have a complaint. You've probably heard it, maybe expressed it. I've talked with Kaveri about this. How can it relate to something that happened, I think it was the calendar said, in 1947 or 45, it says, or 47? 47. 1947 years ago. How do you relate to that? It's
You're
not
right,
shy.
it was only 1946, I could have related.
Yes, it was a year. Someone told, I was discussing this with someone yesterday in front of my yeshiva. He told me his mother had this experience. After many years, his mother was a mature woman already. So then our mother took out some old pictures. This is just the old house that we used to live in. And you know, these people here, right? That was my first husband. And these few children there, those are your step brothers and sisters. And they were all killed off by the Nazis in Europe. They never made it out. She, the mother, made it out, but the husband and the other children didn't make it out. Right? But these are your brothers and sisters. Right? The mother of the Talmud Chacham I spoke to within the yeshiva said, well, can you feel sad about that? Intellectually you can feel sad about that, but like how do you relate to it? It's an amazing thing. You have a child, he's playing with his little rattle, 2-3-year-old playing with his rattle, you take it away, he immediately starts crying. Right? No intellectual, it's an automatic response. You took something away from him, he cries. Right? So the basic English wasn't really taken away from us, so how can we cry about it? Right? So that's a very common complaint or excuse why we don't sit down and cry. Even though in previous generations they did cry. You may know the story about Napoleon, who was walking through the streets in Paris on one Tisha B'Av night. And he was common to do that he would dress in common clothes. He wants to see what's going on in Paris and get a feel for the Hamon Am, the populace of the city. So he dressed up in plain clothes and wandered through the streets of Paris. He comes to a certain section in the city and he is crying. Right? He says, what could possibly be wrong in my wonderful Medina, my wonderful Paris? Why would people be crying? This is the Paris, the diamond of Europe. Everyone's happy, go lucky, everyone's having a good time. What are people crying in my town for? My kingdom, what could possibly be wrong? So he followed the sound, he came to a shul. He walks in, sees everyone sitting on the floor, candles on the floor, right? Jews, and he said, turns to the first person who comes in, what's going on? He says, we're crying because our temple has been destroyed in the Holy Land, in Eretz Yisrael. He thinks to himself and he says, I have a lot of, I'm the king, I have a lot of ability to know what's going on in the world, it's my business. I have no information, no reports of any wars going on in the Middle East at this point, right? No wars going on. How could you claim that you're crying about news of your temple being destroyed? He says, no, this happened, 1,800 years ago. He says, Napoleon was impressed by this so much. He said, if you're crying about that today, right, 1,800 years after the fact, or more or less about after the temple was crying, you're still crying about it, it's a symbol that's going to be rebuilt. It's going to be rebuilt. Who cries over the Colosseum that's broken down, right? The Colosseum, there's more left of the Colosseum than the temple of the Dogs, of the Beis Hamikdash. You go to Greece, and what's the Acropolis? What's the Acropolis? What's that?
Acropolis.
Acropolis. Yeah. Thank you. You see that? I don't know how, it's not in such great condition, right? But how many people go there to cry, right? The people who should be crying, the Greeks, the old Greeks, they're gone, right? And the old Romans, they're gone. So of course there's no one there to cry, right? So we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, right? But we're still around and we cry, right? That's one of the reasons why on Tisha B'Av we put on talis and tefillin at the tzoyis. We're allowed to put on talis and tefillin. Why? Because at that point the fire came out on into the Beis Hamikdash. That was ignited, right? And Beis Hamikdash started to burn. So you think so we're already getting in the Chama. What the question is, what kind of consolation is that? The consolation is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the decision, right? It was a decision between Klal Yisrael and the Beis Hamikdash, right? So when the decision was finally made, it was going to be the Beis Hamikdash, right? That's a consolation that we still have mitzvahs. We still can put on talis, we can put on tefillin. We're still doing what our forefathers did and what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us to do at our Sinai. That's a big consolation for us. Meaning, it could be there down in the old city. What would be with us if we had a half a Beis Hamikdash still standing there, and if we wasn't around? What would that be? Still, there would be a big tourist spot. What do we need from that? We want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're alive. Klal Yisrael is still serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's much different than what it used to be, right? But it's something that we have a nechama. We can put on talis and tefillin. Right? We can put on talis and tefillin, and we can get up off the ground. We can sit on the chairs half the day after the fire broke out in the Beis Hamikdash, because decision was made. It wasn't. The Medrash says that at the time when the enemies entered the Beis Hamikdash, there was 600,000 malachim that were poised and ready to attack those who were about to destroy the Beis Hamikdash. 600,000 angels, malachim, right? Spiritual forces that were ready to attack those who were going to destroy the Beis Hamikdash. HaKadosh Baruch Hu see that Klal Yisrael didn't do tshuva, right? So they saw that the Shekhinah had moved, right, away from the Beis Hamikdash. So they moved away with the Shekhinah as well, and the enemies came in and destroyed the Beis Hamikdash, started to destroy the Beis Hamikdash. But up until the very last moment, had we done tshuva, everything, the Beis Hamikdash would have been stood, the enemies would have been destroyed. Happened before, right? Sennacherib came with his army, and they were about to destroy Yerushalayim, right? They said, "This is such a small city. We'll all take our rings off and throw a piece of dirt at Yerushalayim, and we'll bury it in the morning. Let's sleep tonight." They never woke up the next morning. Hashem took care of them. Hashem wants to take care of our enemies. He can take care of our enemies. It's dependent upon our tshuva. So, Rav Simcha Zissel here, the Alter Mikelem, says that we have to cry about our averas, our sins. Because what Nebuchadnezzar did to the first Beis Hamikdash, and what Titus did to the second Beis Hamikdash, as Chazal say, they broke a broken building. Right? The physical aspect of the Beis Hamikdash was still there, but all the spirituality that kept it intact was gone. The Chafetz Chaim says in his Sefer Sekuntres, actually, on Tzapel Yeshua, that there was a purpose for the Beis Hamikdash, Kol Zman, the whole time that Klal Yisrael were serving Kadosh Baruch Hu on a Madrega of Lishma. They wanted to serve Kadosh Baruch Hu honestly in a way that they could fulfill the will of Kadosh Baruch Hu in order to please Hashem, not to do things Shalol Lishma, things that take away from the actual mitzvah that we're doing. When we lost our ability to do mitzvahs L'Shem Shamayim, so the Beis Hamikdash and also Eretz Yisrael, as the Chafetz Chaim explains, lost their meaning, lost their purpose. Meaning, if we are our own, are serving Kadosh Baruch Hu properly, so then if there's a Beis Hamikdash, if there's Eretz Yisrael, then all these things are siyuas. They enable us to serve Kadosh Baruch Hu even better. The Haggadah Shel Pesach says after the Dayanus it repeats the whole list, and it says, in addition, after the Dayanus, right, and we have the Beis Hamikdash, and that's the place where we were able to have a kapara for our sins. That we didn't mention in the Dayanus, but in the repetition at the end, the paragraph that repeats all the Dayanus is an addition. The Beis Hamikdash was the place where we can come and have a kapara for our sins. We can become clean, as the Chazal say, there was never a person that came to Yerushalayim, right, and he didn't come clean because everyone was able to have a kapara for his affairs. That was the whole purpose and of the Beis Hamikdash, bringing the korbanos. When these things, it wasn't going to be a purpose for the Beis Hamikdash, meaning we were only doing things mitzvahs anashim l'mada. We're doing mitzvahs automatically, out of rote, out of habit. Meaning, people were doing mitzvahs not because they really wanted to, because it was a social necessity. If you do mitzvahs because it's a social necessity, right? So Kadosh Baruch Hu don't want that, right? Kadosh Baruch Hu wants the heart, right? He doesn't want. Pasuk says, Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want our karbanos. He wants our hearts. Right? A carbon doesn't mean much if there's no heart behind it. Right? We're just bringing carbon because we have to do it. That doesn't mean much to Kadosh Baruch Hu. So the Beis Hamikdash in Eretz Yisrael calls on that we were able to serve Kadosh Baruch Hu properly. The Chafetz Chaim explains. So Eretz Yisrael, the Beis Hamikdash, and everything else had its purpose, and it allowed us, enabled us to serve Hashem even better. But when we weren't doing that, so it was time to go with the Golos. The first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, as Chazal in Gemara Yuma says, because of Shvikas Damim, Gili Arayas, and Avodah Zorah. The first Beis Hamikdash. The second Beis Hamikdash was because of Sinas Chinam. So you see that Sinas Chinam can do what all three of the cardinal Averas can also do. The Gemara also explains, because I'll also explain, that had we learned Torah at the time of the Beis Hamikdash, right? Kadosh Baruch Hu would overlook the Gili Arayas, Srikas Damim, and Avodah Zorah. Chanan Wasserman brings a mashal to explain it. It explains that if you have two armies at war, two countries at war, as long as the armies have ammunition and guns, so the war can continue. But if you de-arm, you take your enemy's arms away from him, his ammunition, his guns away from him, his sword of him, he has to give up. He has nothing to fight with. So the whole time that we had the learning of Torah, so even though there was Gili Arayas, Srikas Damim, and Avodah Zorah, the first Beis Hamikdash, if we had Torah, if we were learning Torah properly, right, Kadosh Baruch Hu would have overlooked it, because you hadn't taken our ammunition, you haven't taken our guns away, you haven't taken our protection away from us. We still have protection against all the other Averas, because Torah has the ability to protect us from all the Averas. Another mashal was given in the same to explain the same chazal, that there was a king, and he had a fellow in his court who used to play piano for him. He was the court piano player. And there was a rebellion against the king, and the piano player was involved with the rebellion. And the rebellion was put down, everyone got caught, everyone got executed, but the piano player didn't get executed. Why? Because the king loved the way he played piano. So this piano player was so good that the king was overlooked the rebellious attitude and actions, behavior of this piano player, and he allowed it to live. Put him back into his place, played the piano, the king was happy, the piano player was very happy, right? It wasn't with all the other guys there lying with their heads off. One day the piano player says he wants to retire, he's tired of this. So he retires. He says he gives his resignation to the king. As he's walking out, the king tells one of his guards to chop his head off. Why he chop his head off? The only keeper, as long as he was playing the piano, he had a purpose, right? And the king allowed him to live. Right? Chai Yisrael the same way. Right? As long as we learn Torah, which is, when we talk about karbanos, a reik nikoya, we give a pleasing scent, so to speak, in Ruchnis and Gashmis to Kadosh Baruch Hu, something that pleases the Kadosh Baruch Hu very much. But want us to do that, there's nothing better than the Torah that we learn. The Torah that we learn, that's the most pleasing thing that Kadosh Baruch Hu wants. So all calls them on that we're learning. So even those Shrikas Dummy and Gili Rayas and Avodah Zorah. So okay, but if they're learning, we'll allow them to why did we lose the land? Why did we get kicked out of the land? Even if we had lost the base of Mikdash, right? Because it's seen as Sakina and Gili Rayas and Shrikas Dummy, so we could still have been in the land. That's exactly the situation we had by Hanukkah. We lost the base of Mikdash. The Yevonim came in, threw us out of the base of Mikdash. They went time of the base of Mikdash. They didn't destroy it, but we still had Eretz Yisrael. We still had Eretz Yisrael, right? So it could have been that the base of Mikdash would have been destroyed, the first base of Mikdash. And however, we could have still been in Eretz Yisrael. And if they were still in Eretz Yisrael, we could have still been hoped that we could come back and eventually rebuild the base of Mikdash if everything else was corrected. But once we stopped learning Torah in the proper way, which is because the Gemara says they didn't make a bracha properly on Limud Torah. They felt that Limud Torah was like any other type of a secular subject, L'Havdil or Dollars. So then they lost the cheshivas, they lost the significance of Torah, the appreciation of Torah for what it really was, and therefore, right, they had to leave Eretz Yisrael as well, had to go into Gullus. So the main tshuva that we have to do, and especially people like us, Baruch Hashem, like, when we're talking to people who, Baruch Hashem, come to Shiurim, and they sit and learn, and they know how to learn, and they want to learn, they want to hear from their Rebbeinu. So we have to think about what kind of tshuva can we do, because if we try to relate to the Beis Hamikdash, it's a very hard job. And it's, as I said, as I just learned last week, our real job is to cry about our sins. So most of the tshuva we're supposed to do, that's what the Chazal say, the Yerushalmi. It says any generation which the Beis Hamikdash has not been rebuilt in, it's ki'ilu, that generation has destroyed it. So we have a share in the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. It hasn't been rebuilt yet. So thinking about tshuva, and specifically tshuva in terms of learning, I was once told that the Chasam Sofer, that one of the reasons why he became such a big gadol was everything he learned, he always tried to remember what he learned, something from what he was learning that relates to him, specifically the Maisa. And if you look at the Igeres Ramban, right, look at the Igeres Ramban, he says at the end also that he says that if you're learning, you can try and apply it, right, to yourself somehow the Maisa. Right? So again, sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't. But you know what you can do, whatever you learn. What you can do, Lamaisa, is you can try and learn it in a way you'll be able to teach it over to somebody else. That's something Lamaisa. To teach, right? To teach it. So whatever you're learning the Mesilas Yesharim, you're learning the Gemara, you're learning Halacha, if you can learn it well enough that you can say it over and explain it to somebody else. So you never know, you're sitting on a bus, you're in an elevator, you're on a plane, right, you're walking on the street. Just have it off the top of your head, try and have it packaged in a good way. You can say it over to somebody. It doesn't have to be a whole shiur of 2 hours worth or a 20-minute thing. It could be a 2-minute thing. And sometimes people are more happy to hear 2 minutes of what you have to say than 20 minutes of what you have to say. Right? So if you can say that, that's a tremendous new attitude you can try and apply to our learning. And that's a type of tshuva that is worthwhile to do, because if you can influence somebody to know something more about Torah, the more people know about Torah, the way it should work, the way it should be. If it's sweet, it should really be sweet enough that people will want to try and learn and know more. So this is something enjoyable, something Shema. That's why on Tisha B'Av we're not supposed to learn, right? Torah is supposed to be so wonderful, so delightful for us, that whether we're mourning for the Beis Hamikdash or mourning, as I learned recently, mourning for our own sins, so we can't take our mind. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says many, many times. We've been Baruch Hashem learning the halachas, the laws in the Geya to Tisha B'Av in the 3 weeks. It says time after time after time, the siyach das from the Avelis. What you can't do is take your mind off the mourning, off the grief you're supposed to be having. And as it turns out now, we're supposed to be mourning over ourselves, right? Where's the lack in ourselves, right, that the Beis Hamikdash still hasn't been rebuilt? Why am I not learning if, in fact, that the reason we were sent into Golos, and the first Golos, even though we came back from Babel, and the Beis Hamikdash was rebuilt, it wasn't the same. The Gemara describes the situation that after the 70 years in Babel, when the Klal Yisrael came back, those who did come back, and not everyone came back, Ezra was not very happy with Klal Yisrael, that not everyone chose to come back. A lot of people chose to, after 70 years in Babel, a lot of people were very comfortable there. They didn't want to come back to Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael was not an easy nor a friendly place. There were people here in Eretz Yisrael were not interested in Jews coming back, and there were a lot of wild animals around that weren't interested in, or let's put it this way, they were interested in having meals, right, in the easy way, getting a person if they could. So it wasn't an easy thing to leave your settlement in Babel and come back to Eretz Yisrael. So those people who did come back, they were praised, and they were great, very great people. And with a lot of mysterious nefesh, they built the new Beis Hamikdash again. And finally, when the Beis Hamikdash was rebuilt and they inaugurated the second Beis Hamikdash, the Gemara describes the situation that those people who came back from Babel, there were two groups, right? There were the younger group, and they were very happy, tremendously happy, to have a new Beis Hamikdash. And there was an older group. You can imagine. These people were 70 years in Golos. How old could they be? Maybe they were 10 years old when they went to Golos. So that means they're 80 years old. Okay? 80 years old. And it says, the Gemara says, that the people who were younger were much more. They were roved. There were many more people than the minority of people who are older people. The older people, how many people of 80 years old could there be coming up out of Babel? Right? A minority. And yet, the cries of the people who came out of Babel, who were older, their crying was greater than the joy and overpowered the glee of those who saw the Beis Hamikdash Sheni being rebuilt, because they who came out of Babel and were in Eretz Yisrael and saw the Bayis Rishon, they knew what the Bayis Rishon used to be, and the Bayis Sheni brought tears to their eyes to see what the replacement was. They were crying, and their cries were so great they overpowered the glee that the younger ones had because they had a Beis Hamikdash. So we have the second Beis Hamikdash that was destroyed because of Sinus China. Sinus China. How does Torah relate to? How can our tshuva with Torah relate to the Sinus China? Torah has the power to change everything about a person. The Gemara has a question. What's greater? Learning itself, or doing things l'maisa, fulfillment of the mitzvahs? And the Gemara says the excellency of Torah lies in the fact that you're learning it. Gadol Torah yosem min ha'maisa. Torah is greater than maisa. Learning Torah is greater than doing. Why? Because Torah, right, is mainly the maisa. Torah brings you to doing. So, I mentioned this before. Hashem Namaran in Prague. He explains that most of the portion explains this Gemara in a way that he's not happy with. The standard explanation is by learning, right? You'll know what to do. If you don't learn, you don't know what to do. But the problem with that, the Maharal Nevar says, if that's going to be the case, so what's the excellency? What's the Torah Yosem min ha'maisa? What's the greatness, the excellency of Torah more than that, of doing? Because if it's that what you learn, you'll be able to do, so that the Havdil is going to be like any other secular subject, the Havdil. A person wants to become a carpenter, he'll learn about wood, and picking saws and hammers and nails and all these type of things, and he'll be good. You want to become a dentist, he'll become a dentist. You want to become a lawyer, he'll become a lawyer. So you want to learn about, right, doing mitzvahs, you learn Torah, it will do the mitzvahs, right? So Maharal is not happy with that pshat, with that explanation. He rather says that Torah, the excellency of Torah is that it supersedes everything. in a way that's beyond just the physical cause and effect of learning and doing. That Torah changes a person. Changes a person in a way that if you're learning, for example, you're learning about the halachas of the 3 weeks. That learning, when you understand the beauty of how Torah fits in, right, and you relate not only intellectually, but you have your heart involved. I was going to know Aaron Gadol, his name was Shmuel Sheker, Zeker Kaddish Mebrocha. He learned in Kelm and in Ymir in Europe. He said he never heard the expression interesting mentioned in terms of their learning. He never heard, this is interesting swords, an interesting idea, it's an interesting halacha. You didn't hear that type of talk in the yeshivas in Europe. Right? And I always say, to explain it further, tomorrow night you're sitting at the Shabbos table, right, and you're eating your chicken soup, and your wife asks you, how do you like the chicken soup? You say, interesting. If she doesn't get up and walk away from the table,
Start raining soup.
Yeah, you're gonna have soup all. It's a very interesting shirt you're gonna be wearing in a minute.
To say it's super.
That's right. It's beyond interesting is the intellect, right? Torah can't just be, you involve the heart, right? The heart's you involve the mind is involved with it. That's no question about it. That's not the ikr, right? The ikr is that you have to be completely involved. The heart's working, the intellect, the heart, everything that when you're learning the harav, no, the sweetness of Torah is you're in full gear. You're using all your capabilities, everything you are. The lev and the neshama are working together. The moach and the seichel, everything's working together in a way that that's what he created us for. That's how he created us. Like I said at the beginning, you look at Shabbos, it looks like any other day of the week in terms of Gashmis. You look at a Jew, it looks like another human being, Lahadiyah. But in real case, it's completely different, right? Try to teach a non-Jew Torah, it's not going to go because it doesn't have the cadence. It's like a computer that has a modem in it, and a computer doesn't have a modem in it. If it's got a modem, it can connect, right? Connect to all kinds of things, good things, bad things, whatever. It connects. If there's a computer, it still can do a lot of things, right? It can add things, and subtract things, can do things. It can do a lot of things with a computer that doesn't have a modem, but it's not anywhere. It's a different dimension if it's got a modem than if it doesn't have a modem. So a Jew, he's got a modem, he's got a direct connection to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, right? And the biggest connection is through our Torah. So we have a Benizranim, a few weeks of, like what Rebbe said, Zitzal, he said, Limud Torah is not a mitzvah asay b'zman groma. Meaning that people shouldn't think that because it's Benizranim, they're part of from Limud Torah. Limud Torah is every day, right? As they say, a person, he has to eat, he has to sleep, has to daven, whatever else he has to do. So if he's basically occupied with these things, so he has a heter not to learn. But any free minute he has, he's obligated to learn. Just like in Tisha B'Av, they say it's not that you're usher to learn Torah. No, it's mutter to learn Torah. You're obligated to learn Torah, but it's just a question of what you can learn, right? A bit of a machlokas in the person exactly if that's true or not. There's machlokas. Most days are the opinion that you're obligated to learn Torah. We say Berachos Torah in the morning, just like we do every day. The same thing saying that. That's a proof that we must be obligated in learning Torah as well. So, just like on Tisha B'Av, we have to learn on Benizranim as well. And Tu B'Av, I'll just maybe close with a few minutes about Tu B'Av. It's very significant that Tu B'Av, as the Gemara says, along with Yom Kippur, were two of the greatest, wonderful days of the calendar for Klal Yisrael. What's so great about Tu B'Av? Very short explanation is, as the Hakim Shlomo explains in the Svarim, he explains that Tu B'Av represented the change in the time of the calendar where the influences of Esav come to their end, and now the influences of the Jews of Yaakov begin. Right? This is tied to the halakha we mentioned at the very beginning of our halachas in Tisha B'Av, that a person, if he has a court case with a non-Jew during Av, the first question is machlokas, how long in Av? All the whole month of Av till Tu B'Av or until Tisha B'Av. Actually, try and get out of the court case because the Jews' power of success is not as great as if it is going to be another time. Because Esav is very strong at that time. So Esav we know has the Torah of the sword, and Yaakov has the Torah of Torah. So at the time of Tu B'Av, that's a change in the cycle of the year, where the Torah is now at its beginning strength. So therefore, we're supposed to make use of that, and as the Gemara says, that a person who he adds on to his Torah beginning from Tu B'Av, will be added on to life, right? The person who Shem sees it. Oh, because why? Because the night's now getting longer, right? You look at the calendar, the times of sunset and sunrise, the days are getting shorter again, and the nights are getting longer, and the nights are real time we're supposed to try and learn Torah. So a person is supposed to take this as a signal that it's now time to begin using those extra minutes that he has at night for what? To learn. Right? When the days were long, people are out in the fields in general working, doing whatever they're doing, and times when we didn't have electricity 24 hours a day, people would come home and they'd rest at night and come home at night and they'd be able to learn. During the day they had activities. So at night is the time to, as I'll say, is the time to learn Torah. So even the Tu B'Av, it's the opportunity for us to increase our Torah, and that's the beginning of our Ben Zmanim, as they say, and that'll be beginning and a start for preparation for Elul. And as we say, that Elul is going to be the preparation for the Rosh Hashanah. And so what we're doing now, what we're experiencing now, is the beginnings of the foundations of the new year. You can take the tshuva that we can do on Tisha B'Av regarding our own Torah. And as I said, it's a good suggestion. Try and just think about learning when you're learning about how you can probably teach this over to somebody in some even simple way, right? The simpler the better, right? Whatever it may be, even if it's just a pasuk. Rashi and Chumash, whatever it might be, one small halacha, if you could just capsulize it in your mind, set that out as you go. But Kadosh Baruch will certainly give you that Siyata D'Shmaya to be able to do it. If you do that every day, as I once heard from Shimon Schwab, I'll close with this, that there's a halacha in Hilchos Shabbos. There's a base medrash and there's storing all over, so it's a question whether they're considered the teruvas or not, whether they can pick them up all around and put them on the shelf, whether it's mutter or asr. So my sense of machlokas, if you want to be machmir, so to get out of the seikis, to play it safe, what you do is you pick up every sefer or shrar, as Sal said in Washington Heights, you read something from the sefer, right? You read one or two lines from the sefer, so you pick it up, you can put it on the shelf, right? You can clean up the whole base medrash that way. And he says, besides that, you become a big Talmid Chacham as well. Right? So you see, if it's just you don't have to sit there and you have a big thing to learn. You just learn one or two lines, one Rashi, one Chumash. You pick that up one here and two. The Medrash Tanchuma says you learn 2 halachas a day, and after that you become a big Talmid Chacham. So it doesn't matter where we start. It's been a career we end off, and Mitzvah Shem. Hope to see everyone on Rosh Chodesh Elul. Mitzvah Shem.
First day Rosh Chodesh Elul is Rosh Hashanah. So.